I am 46 years old, and I have been diagnosed with several things. Hyperactivity when I was 5, ADHD when I was 25. Then, in 2007 or 2008 is when I realized it's autism. So I said, whoa, you know who's autistic too? Dustin Hoffman in the movie Rain Man, and said, that's not me. Then I realized, the guy collected baseball cards, so did I. The guy gets frightened at the very sight of hot water. I get startled by different things. I even go, oh, like that, whatever. He knew how many toothpicks there were in that box, and that's kind of what I am, counting things like that.
There's a lot of variability among different people with autism in terms of what their symptoms look like and what their challenges are. In general, we know that autism affects an individual's ability to understand social situations and to interact with other people. Sometimes, that's more obvious because we may have a child who isn't looking at someone, isn't responding to questions, something very obvious like that. But with other individuals, it may be very, very subtle. That's one of the things I think that's so confusing about autism.
I did notice that kids would pick on me. They'd seem to be faster or stronger than I am. And maybe they did things differently, physically speaking. But other than that, I can't really think of myself being different, People who don't know me, they wouldn't understand. I sometimes have to explain to people, it's pretty much like saying, don't hit me because I'm autistic, or don't hate me because I'm autistic.
Again, it has to start with education. People have to be educated. They have to become familiar with the disorder and understand that it is a disability, but it doesn't mean that people with autism can't make meaningful contributions to society. Unfortunately, because there's a lack of knowledge, there's a lack of understanding, it's very, very difficult for individuals with autism to find meaningful employment. A number of them are able to graduate from high school, a number are able to go into college and even receive a degree. The challenge, and even the bigger challenge, is being able to find employment for individuals, meaningful employment for individuals who have autism.
As a society, we've come a long way from 70 years ago in how willing we are to embrace and include children with autism. 50 years ago, they were not allowed in public schools for the most part. And parents were told to put these children in institutions. And that's what happened in many, many cases. But all of these kids are going to grow up. They are growing up. They have grown up. And we haven't really made the same leap in acceptance of adults with autism. If you see somebody walking down the street who's disheveled, who maybe hasn't changed his clothes in 2 or 3 days, that person doesn't get a lot of warmth and embrace and support. That person is, for the most part, shunned. And that might be a person with autism. That person may not have the self-hygiene skills to take care of himself and will be left to sleep out on the street at night. In the workplace, you might have somebody who has autism who keeps making a mistake that you consider silly and annoying, and you go to the boss and say, can we get rid of that guy, as opposed to, hey, why don't we help that guy get over that, because once that person gets over that, they may become great contributing employees. We don't have that sympathy and support for adults yet, and that's really the next frontier in autism.
If they're not self-sufficient, If they're not able to find employment and they're not able to take care of themselves, all right, who's going to take care of them? The taxpayers are going to take care of them, and we're going to be paying a lot more down the road and on the back end than we would if we tackled it right now. So it's that old saying, pay a little now or pay a lot later, that if we're willing to invest tax dollars to address this issue right now, very early on, that we're going to reduce or minimize those tax dollars much later, because it's going to cost a lot more to take care of an adult, okay, who's living in a group home and meeting all of their medical needs and their physical needs than it would be if we were to take care of the situation very early on and give that person with autism a chance at living an independent, successful life.
It's a delay in development, and the main areas affected are communication and social skills, and you tend to see a lot of repetitive behaviors. So these kids tend to do the same thing over and over again without a purpose. Maybe they won't play appropriately with their toys. They might spin the wheel of a car and look at it, or watch things, things that maybe other people might not notice, like leaves falling. They think it's a combination of genetics and environmental triggers. So maybe these kids are predisposed because of family members. They don't know if it happens in the womb or it happens, after a while, but something in the environment triggers these genes. The brain is not wired the way it should be, is the theory that they have. The brains are actually somewhat bigger in kids with autism, and they think it's because of inflammation. And they think definitely there's a gut-brain connection. So the diet, might be a factor, what these kids are eating and how they're processing their foods, and how the brain develops because of what's in the gut too. My daughter, developed normally for the first year. I was actually a child psychiatry fellow when she was developing, so I really tracked her milestones, and everything was on time. She had a few words by the time she was 1, and then, between 1 and 2, it kind of stalled. So a lot of people were saying, oh, maybe it's just a speech delay. And that was shortly after her 2nd birthday. And the ensuing months, she basically started showing every sign of autism. So she started doing the repetitive play. She basically stopped looking at us. She would just hold our hand and put it on top of any object she wanted. It's called autistic leading. And so, it started becoming more evident this is something more than a speech delay.
I can't tell you how many times I've dreamt that I'm speaking to her, and hearing her voice. And then you wake up and you don't, and then you have to accept that, that it's that you have to speak to her in a different way. My daughter wakes up. My daughter woke up at like 2 or 3 a.m. last night. She wakes up every night in the middle of the night, and she makes noise for the next 4 hours, laughing and I'll go in and I'll sit with her. I'll give her an iPad. We'll talk. I'll try to more me talking, but her listening, and we'll try to deal with that. But it affects your life in every way. My daughter still has trouble going to the bathroom. In the toilet. Sometimes she does, but sometimes she doesn't. Going to church, I've had people look at me like, oh, she's making this noise. You would think at church people would be accepting of a child with autism, but often not.
Before judging and leaping to like, oh, this is just a spoiled kid, or, because it's unusual behaviors that you see in someone that may look typically physically may look fine, but the behaviors are not, and maybe to be more understanding, not as judging, like basically kind of ask, how can I help? Because a lot of times families give you a kind of like I would call a dirty look or something, like if your child is misbehaving in public. And I would rather that they offer help or, more of an understanding.
I want her to always feel accepted for exactly who she is. You never want your child to feel like they are inadequate or that you would want them to be different. She's an innocent. She's an angel. You know, she does nothing wrong. She doesn't know right and wrong. She knows right. She's a good person. I had the feeling that God's the only thing He's going to care about is He gave me this child. Did I take care of her? He's not going to care whether I become President of the United States. All He's going to care about is, did I take care of this child who needed to be taken care of? What the studies show and what the FDA has said is that the quicker you bring in the therapy, the better. So with my son, we put him into therapy immediately. And let me tell you, within a week, we saw a change. We saw him being more attentive. We saw him speaking more.
Boys.
And that has continued. So now he's 4 going on 5. And he speaks a lot. He's able to transition. He plays with other children. He shows a real interest in other children. He plays with toys appropriately. And I believe that by next year, my thought is that he will mainstream completely.
I think that almost everyone deeply involved in the therapy for autism would agree that behavior therapy is the cornerstone of the therapies that we do for autism. Taking a child, finding their lowest points of failure in their development in imitation, their lowest point of failure in their development in expressive language, in receptive language, in all these different categories of behavior, and then working them through each of those points of failure so that they get those skills. And we're teaching them the appropriate behaviors they didn't get to learn because their neurology kept them from it at the time. Almost all therapies for autistic children are required to be one-on-one. You have one therapist with that one child. And if that child spends 8 hours of its day or 6 hours of its day or 4 hours of its day in therapy, you're paying for a whole human being for just your child for that period of time. So that right off the top accounts for most of the expense. It's one-on-one therapy. It has to be.
Every child is different, but very, very, very specifically different. And the protocols that are written for every child, they are tailored to that specific child.
Unique.
The intensity needs to be there, and I know that is tiring because it's a 24/7 job. But they do get better. They're able to communicate, and that's really the most important thing. That as a mom, I really, I push my son every day to do more.
What makes Crystal Academy operate like Crystal Academy is the love that Madi and I put into this because we love the children, because our son's one of them. Our son David is 13 now. He was diagnosed in 2004 as moderate to severely autistic. And like all parents who get that news, we went to work on finding for David all the services that were available to help him optimize his potential. And in doing so, Madi, being the hero that she was driving him to one place for behavior therapy and another place for occupational therapy, and then home to do swimming therapy, and then back to the speech therapy. And it was a nightmare. And so after a while, we started working on a plan for creating a place where parents could come for all the essential services they needed. One child came to us nonverbal, pulling out her own hair in clumps, pulling out her mother's hair in clumps, very frustrated, very introverted, and was with us for 2 years. She went from nonverbal and self-abusive to happy, engaged in a neurotypical school. Stories don't get any better than that one. Those are the rare exceptional stories. Most of our children aren't going to spend 2 years with us, and then there's no magic potion here. These are just hardworking, intelligent professionals. Still lots of behavior to go, still lots of work to do, but so much progress made.
And for us, obviously, as a parent, I would have loved for David to be in a typical classroom. So I get the emotions that go with that, and the fear that comes with that as well. And also, it's about discovering their talents. They all have talents, we all have talents, but because of the communication issue, you don't know. I mean, our son, for example, people tell us, oh my God, he's playing beautiful piano. So yes, your child has a talent, and it's about us as a group, as parents together, to find that talent and show the world, yes, we can.
A lot of families of children with autism are celebrating a legal victory against their insurance companies.
And we were choosing in the richest nation in the world to throw children out for the rest of their lives instead of putting in the necessary money to cure them when they were young. That was wrong. We needed to make a change.
Mine's better than mine right there. All right.
The reason that came about was because there was a movement at the grassroots level from people all over the disabilities community, but especially the autism community, where they said enough is enough. And they exerted enough pressure on those representatives and those senators to pass a bill. And so we were able to get some help for some children. Obviously, I would love to see that bill expanded to include more folks, but you know, it's a process in Tallahassee.
Look how much can be done when people really work at something and have a goal and unite and share a target and support each other. Now there's much more to be done. Let's look at the past for that inspiration. If it could be done over the last 50 years, we can do something over the next 50 years for the parts of the job that still have to be done. There are certain places that in our book we refer to as pockets of excellence, and if Coral Gables is one of those, you can be sure that people from outside will be looking to see what's happening here.
I mean, first, as an attorney, I would always mention that all of our governments must adhere to the American with Disabilities Act. Obviously, we need to work to make our buildings and our activities and our programs more accessible. So that's the minimum. That's required by federal law. What I like about Coral Gables is that we seek to go beyond that. So specifically, you mentioned the Autism Wallet Card. That's a national program, and the Coral Gables Police Department deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that.
We found something that all of us can collectively endorse to help our law enforcement officers communicate much better with one part of our community that we serve.
Anyone with autism can have a card that they keep with them. So if they have some interaction with a government official, or really anybody, this gives them the ability to hand over the card so that government official can look at it and see, oh, I understand that you have autism, and I understand that you may have difficulty in these areas, and I'm going to accommodate you.
Because of the unique behaviors and the challenges that people with autism face, oftentimes law enforcement may misinterpret and think that possibly this person is under the influence of a controlled substance. We believe the card is going to be very helpful in disclosing that information. The officer can take an approach that he might not have otherwise taken. To date, roughly 2,000 cards have been issued really across the world. The University of Miami card, along with Disability Independence Group and the Coral Gables Police Department, we collaborated to create a training video for individuals with autism to explain to them what they can expect or should expect if they were to come in contact with a law enforcement officer. We also believe that it was really important that we provide wallet card training for law enforcement officers. So it's to familiarize law enforcement officers with autism spectrum disorder, as well as with the wallet card itself. We intend to share this with other law enforcement organizations, and we believe as we introduce these organizations to the wallet card that we're going to see more chiefs, more sheriffs that are going to want to bring this kind of training to their officers. So much so that Miami-Dade County just recently passed a resolution, requiring that their officers receive training in the wallet card.
Safety Net is a program presented by LoJack. LoJack has been finding stolen vehicles for over 30 years. They got into the business of finding wanderers, people with Alzheimer's, dementia, and children who are on the autism spectrum disorder. The basic concept is it's used by an RF frequency. RF is very accurate and very reliable. It's been around for ages. This bracelet is bought by the person that's potential for wanderer, and it's placed around their wrist. It's in a very sturdy bracelet to where it can't be ripped or torn off. Each bracelet has its own frequency number, and that's put into a database. If that individual goes missing, the law enforcement agency that is going to be tracking the wanderer has that frequency number tied to that information. For our residents that live in the city, Coral Gables Police Department does participate in this program. The Coral Gables Police Department officers are trained to use the LoJack Safety Net tracking equipment in case we do have a wanderer that goes missing. This equipment is what the police officer uses. So we turn the unit on, we dial in the specific frequency number, and we start at a starting point where that wanderer was last seen. Statistics have shown that autistic children are very drawn to water. They like the water for whatever reason, whether they can swim or not swim. So the importance of RF, this can be located underwater. That signal coming to us, we are sure that we're going to be able to locate that bracelet. It's very reliable, and it gets it down to the exact location.
In our department, we use an inclusion type of programming. So the first thing that we do is, if there is a child or a participant, adult, that has special needs and wants to participate in our programs, we gauge what that need is, and we work with that individual to make sure that they're able to be included within the scope of the general programming. One of them is our Gifts in Golf program. We have a wonderful service that takes place at the Granada Golf Course, and it's for children with autism, and it's having children with autism learning how to golf. And what we're doing is having this introductory program. They're actually going out onto the practice areas of the golf course and learning the basics of golf, with the intention of having them actually go out on the course and play a couple of holes when they receive enough instruction that they're able to do it. Part of that participation is the city allocating resources. We want to try to take cost out of being an unreasonable accommodation, because it costs money does not make it an unreasonable accommodation. That is our goal, and some of the resources that we've allocated is one-on-one counselors that goes with them to each activity and make sure that the activity is tailored specifically for that child's enjoyment. An example, we had one this past summer where we had a child that was autistic, was on the spectrum, and wanted to be in our tennis program. So what we did is we met with that parent, we talked about the demands that the program would have, and we were able to formulate a program where the child could participate, had a very positive experience. We want to do our part and make sure that the community, when an individual has a need, whether it's served by Coral Gables Parks and Recreation or whether it's served by another entity, the need is served. And that's our focus and our goal.
We want individuals with disabilities to participate in all aspects of life. And we want the government to be welcome and opening to them. And when someone comes up and asks for an accommodation, the government or the business or whoever it may be goes forward to them and says, how can I help you? And it's a pleasure to have you here, and we'll do what we can to make you feel welcome. And I know that that's what Coral Gables stands for. And that's why I feel so proud to be the city attorney of this city. Respect for inherent dignity, individual autonomy, including the freedom to make one's own choices and independence of persons, non-discrimination, full and effective participation and inclusion in society.
Commissioner Keon?
Yes.
Commissioner Lago?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cassano? Yes. Commissioner Sleznick?
Yes.
Mayor Casey?
Yes.
What we're trying to create is a world where people who are different, who are special, who need special accommodations, actually feel that they belong just like everybody else. And that includes having a fully dignified life, which includes a good school education and a job when they graduate.
The Coral Gables municipality, all of the individuals we've dealt with have been incredibly supportive. They've done so much for us. Mayor Kaysen invited us down and had the children come for Government Day and let them be mayor for a day, which was just incredible. The kids had a great time. They turned over the holiday park to us one day, opened it early, the Christmas holiday park they have downtown, just for us, and they sent the trolley over to get us, to take us for this event. I mean, they've been amazingly supportive.
They feel good about being there. Their self-esteem increase, and we really push that a lot in here. This story, it's amazing because you're helping to establish awareness, inclusion, acceptance. That's very important for our children and for our families as well.
When you care about somebody, you only want the best.
What you were saying about what do we want for David, the only one thing that I would add to that is acceptance.
When you care about somebody, you only want the best.
I want her to always feel accepted for exactly who she is. So I don't really want anything for her in that sense. I want her to be who she is and to be happy.
I still think that I can get married and have children, believe it or not. I mean, even if it takes me till I'm like 55 years of age.
Most people with autism, they really want to please people. They really want to do the right thing, but they just need a little bit more time. They need a little understanding.